Welcome back to another We Ourselves episode. In this video, I'm going to give my general comments on episode 3 of the Ahsoka show, Time to Fly. So be warned, there will be spoilers in this review. If you haven't seen episode 3, please go and watch the episode and then come back to this review. This episode begins with the Jedi droid training Sabine as their ship flies through hyperspace. We confirm that Sabine isn't a Jedi or really Force sensitive. Ahsoka reveals that all beings can touch the Force, but it takes talent and training to become a Force user. Even so, Ahsoka feels Sabine can still learn useful skills that will help her as a Mandalorian. After the opening credits, we go to the New Republic fleet and we see their flagship, and we have a scene with Hera. She's trying to persuade Mon Mothma and the Senate committee to send ships to help Ahsoka and Sabine deal with Thrawn. The senators refuse to believe Thrawn is back and accuses Hera of wanting the resources for her personal mission to find Ezra. Then we have a quick scene with Hera's son, Jason, and it ends with Jason saying that he wants to be a Jedi. The next scene is actually a sequence of action pieces that last 10 minutes. Just before exiting hyperspace, Sabine and Ahsoka get the news from Hera that the New Republic won't send them any help. When the ship comes out of hyperspace, they are attacked by Shin and a group of enemy fighters. After escaping the initial attack, they face Morgan in her hyper-ring ship, which has turbo laser batteries. Ahsoka's ship survived, but is temporarily disabled because Wei Yang insisted that they remain close enough for him to complete a scan of Morgan's ship. Shin and her fighters move in to blow up Ahsoka and crew, only to have Shin change up and shoot at Ahsoka instead, because Ahsoka has exited the ship to use her lightsabers to deflect enemy fire. This tactic works and distracts Shin and Merrick long enough for Sabine to repair the ship. At this point, Sabine flies the ship into the planet's upper atmosphere where they encounter giant purgles. Sabine uses the huge creatures to evade Shin and set down on the planet. The show ends with Baylan stating the obvious, that Ahsoka's crew is hiding in the forest and he sends his minions to find them. Then the show lingers on Baylan standing there with the music dramatically swelling in the background. The image lasts so long it becomes almost comical, and is clearly an attempt to pad the show with extra minutes. So, if you couldn't tell from my tone, what was my overall reaction to this episode?
I confess myself disappointed.
To put it simple, I was disappointed the first and the second time I viewed it, and here's why. Some reactors have stated that it's a good thing for Ahsoka to train Sabine because they're going to encounter other Force users on their mission. But that's problematic to me for a number of reasons. First, this idea leaves the fans doing all the heavy lifting to explain and expand on what could have been covered in the show. If, as many fans feel, the show is light on content and actual forward movement, then Filoni has plenty of time to explain these issues. We don't need to do the job for him. The second reason I don't think Ahsoka training Sabine works is all these conversations should have taken place during Sabine's initial but failed Jedi training. Wei Yang has proven that his truth setting is at 100%. He's never hesitated to speak his droid mind. And given that Sabine began the training in the past and failed, why didn't he make his harsh assessments of her lack of Force abilities then? I know why they're doing it. Dave Filoni created this Jedi training backstory, told us it happened in the past, but now he's having all the conversations that should have happened then take place now. The third reason this training doesn't make sense to me, besides Sabine not being Force sensitive, is that Sabine is a Mandalorian. Almost from birth, Mandalorians are trained to fight Jedi, and by extension, other trained Force users. It's why their armor is made from Beskar. That metal can stop a lightsaber, and all the other weapons they can deploy, and Sabine has been trained to use them, can counter most Jedi moves. And don't forget, Sabine has already been trained by 2 Jedis, Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Miller. If I'm not mistaken, Kanan had Sabine going through the basic Jedi forms and stances, and Sabine didn't forget those during the original animated show. So what can Ahsoka add to her training that Sabine already doesn't know? By the way, Kanan was a real Jedi. Ahsoka, a Padawan at the time, walked away from her master and the Order and never returned. Kanan lost his master during Order 66, but he went on to successfully train Ezra, who became a Jedi. And according to Disney Star Wars, since Kanan successfully trained another Jedi, Kanan also became a master. Who has Ahsoka trained? Now, I'm not belittling her. I'm just pointing out that Sabine was trained by an actual Jedi. 2, in fact. And another thing, Ahsoka constantly reminds Yang that the Jedi Order doesn't exist anymore and that she was never a full Jedi. So why is she training Sabine in Jedi techniques and throwing around terms like Master and Padawan? This feels like J.J. Abrams all over again to me. What do I mean by that? Like Star Wars The Force Awakens, this show feels like a soft reboot of these characters at the expense of what came before. Many angry fans have accused Filoni of going to the dark side. While I didn't agree at the time, it's becoming harder to ignore that claim. Last, I finally understand why Sabine had stuffed her Mandalorian armor in a box and shoved it under her desk. If she had on her Mandalorian Beskar armor, that fight with Shin would have gone differently. This wouldn't have happened because Sabine's armor would have stopped the lightsaber. I get it now. It doesn't make sense to me, but I see the backwards style of storytelling at work. By the way, for any of you fanboys out there who have this love affair with the Sith and you have defended Shin outdoing Sabine in that fight, I just have this to say to you.
Oh, no. 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 No, no.
Sabine was trained to use the dark saber. The dark saber is a lightsaber type weapon that was created by the first Mandalorian Jedi Knight. She was taught by 2 Jedis how to use that thing, and she used it in battle to restore her honor with her people, which is one of the reasons why I did not understand why Dave Filoni had her stuff her Mandalorian armor in a box and slide it under a desk, when she went through all of that character development in the show to get to that point. Even without her armor, she should have done much better in that fight. She should have been at least as good as Din Djarin was when he was fighting Grand Moff Gideon, who had the dark saber, and he had the Beskar spear. Sabine actually trained with the dark saber. And if I'm not mistaken, and y'all can go and check me on this, Kanan warned her. It's like, yeah, you have all your Mandalorian armor and you have all these bells and whistles, but what happens if you don't have that? You still need to know the forms so that you can survive in a fight. So again, she was already trained. So no, she shouldn't have lost, even without her armor. But for some reason, they have dialed her skill sets back to 0. Which is why it leads me to believe that this is a stealth reboot of the characters. I guess I should be careful what I wish for. I stated in my first Ahsoka video that Hera should have talked with Mon Mothma in the first episode, and now we get that scene here. Finding Ezra and getting even with Thrawn has always been more important to Hera, which is why inserting Ahsoka into the mix never really worked for me. And this scene just adds to the feeling because we as fans should have more, not less. And when it comes to Mon Mothma, we've been shown in books, movies, and TV shows that she's willing to have secret meetings and do things outside of the normal channels. In the extended universe books, which are now not canon anymore, she often asks Leia and Han to go on missions that she herself couldn't do anymore as head of the Republic. She was part of a rebellion while Darth Sidious was alive and well. So why didn't she personally give Hera the mission to track down Thrawn, or even better, track down and root out any Imperials who are working against the New Republic? We could have started out the first or second show bringing us up to date on what the Ghost Crew, led by Hera, is doing. I think it would have been fine for Hera and the others to already be on the case of rooting out Imperials and trying to find out why these large warp cores are being made, even though the New Republic doesn't have any ships that large. You know, When I reflect on the original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back movies, in which in-universe time has passed between the two, I got the feeling that the characters continued to live off-screen between the films. They were different from where we left off in the first movie, but it was a logical difference that spoke of growth. This show needs something like that with the Rebels characters. Finally, we see Hera's son, something which I also mentioned in my first Ahsoka video, and yet it doesn't really serve any purpose for me. Perhaps the saddest aspect is the lack of reaction by casual Star Wars fans to little Jason saying that he wanted to be a Jedi. And it's not their fault. A casual fan has no way to know that Jason's dad was a Jedi. This is Jason's dad. He's the one whose head is always cut out of frame in the close-ups of the mural. So when the son says, "I want to be a Jedi," there's far more significance to that than Dave Filoni revealed to the casual audience. Does Jason even know his dad was a Jedi? And while we're talking about it, why can't Hera have a flashback? The actor who voiced Kanan is still around and is a defender of Disney Star Wars. And like Clancy Brown, the actor who voiced the Lothal governor and who came back to portray the live-action version, Freddie Prinze Jr. could do the same. But, I know that would take away from the Ahsoka, Sabine, not Jedi storyline, so, never mind. But I have a prediction that we'll never see Ezra in live action either. I may be wrong, and I hope I am, but I get the feeling that hologram Ezra is it. The male Rebel characters have been severely downplayed so far in this series. The space battle disappointed me, but not because of the quality of the special effects. Lucasfilm does top-notch effects for the movies and even for the TV shows. I was disappointed because the action sequences went on too long and lost any real sense of urgency for me. Plus, I know Sabine, and I honestly can't figure out why she's so bad at everything she used to know how to do. She keeps missing the enemy ships for most of the first leg of the battle. Somehow they survive because Ahsoka, someone who learned to work and fight with Anakin Skywalker of all people, someone who did unusual things all the time, Ahsoka has to learn to work with Sabine? Okay, whatever. So anyway, they survive the turbo laser barrage, but the ship has lost all power and its shields. Shin tells Morgan that she's going to take care of it, yet instead of her blowing up Ahsoka's crippled ship, Shin watches Ahsoka exit the ship and activate her lightsabers. Now, Shin knows that Ahsoka was trained by somebody her own master admired, but instead of her just blowing up the ship, she decides to shoot at a force-sensitive person who can block her laser fire. But you know what? Okay. But when that first pass fails and they circle around, why is Shin still shooting at Ahsoka? Make it make sense. I'm not a defender of Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. I thought it broke the fandom. But say what you will. In that scene where Kylo Ren hesitates to destroy the enemy ship's bridge because he senses his mom on board, Johnson did the logical thing. Kylo Ren removing his finger off the trigger makes sense for his internal conflicts. But the other two pilots still had a job to do. They were like, dude, what the hell? And so they fire on the enemy and they take out the bridge, killing everyone, including Kylo's mom. So I have to ask, why didn't Merrick and the other pilot do their job? Let Shin have her moment with Ahsoka, but the others had a job to do. Now I can see some people claiming that, Shin was in charge or they were afraid of her. But I'm sorry, Merrick can use a lightsaber and was trained to hunt Jedis. If he survived an encounter with Ahsoka, he can handle Shin. And no one is more of an emo boy than Kylo Ren, yet those other pilots in The Last Jedi didn't seem afraid of him doing this.
He killed my mom.
But we know what the reason was. Because Dave Filoni wanted this badass moment with Ahsoka, we had to make the villains dumb, and that just added to my disappointment. I thought the appearance of the Purgles was also a wasted moment. For casual fans, they're just big whales. And while the imagery is exciting, the creatures ultimately serve no purpose in the scene beyond being a plot device. For fans of the Rebel show, we know what they can do. And I found myself sad that a casual fan will never know how Ezra used these creatures in the show. Because the villains acted stupidly, Ahsoka, Sabine, and Wei-Yang are able to get down to the surface, power down, and hide in the forest so that the enemy can't find them. I don't have anything else to add to my initial comments about the final Baylan scene beyond the clear padding of the episode with the long take. For me, this episode was okay. It had nice visuals, but I felt myself disappointed much of the time. Watching Star Wars Ahsoka as a fan of the original animated shows is like starving all day and wanting a really good meal, yet for some reason you stop by the convenience store and buy one of those 2 for $1 bags of chips. They don't satisfy the hunger and the desire for a real meal. A show like Andor is a real meal. Ahsoka and some of the other Star Wars shows are the 2-for-1 bags of chips. And I don't get it because these characters are Dave Filoni's creations. He was showrunner on Clone Wars and showrunner and writer on Rebels. He and his crew know how to pack ultimate storytelling into tight 22-minute packages. I actually plan to do a video talking about that very thing and how they aren't playing to their strengths. So in conclusion, my overall rating for this show is it was okay. Despite the nice visuals, overall the show doesn't move anywhere or cover much ground. I've seen these characters done better, and their potential is being sacrificed and stretched for what feels like to me a soft reboot. So, let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.